Well, hello and welcome to my very first live. I am, first of all, I can't believe I'm here, but I'm getting out of my own way because it's one thing to sit in your home every single day on your couch or at your table. It's another thing to sit here and talk to the computer. So I'm getting out of my own way. I'm getting out of my comfort zone and I want to serve you. And this is the only way I know how is to come in here live to teach something to you and to answer your questions. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into our 6-part series on early intervention. So let me go ahead and switch my screen here. I hope the audio is working. I hope you guys can see me. Like I said, this is my first one. If you are here on live or even on the pre-recording, go ahead and put a heart in the chat or the comment section to let me know that you are here. Okay, so like I said, 6-part series on what every parent needs to know about early intervention. And we are going to break this down step by step so it's easy for you to understand. And today's topic is going to be, should you call early intervention? And I'm going to give you some signs to watch for that would actually warrant calling early intervention. But first, let's go ahead and talk about why families trust me and why I feel like I am educated to teach you all things baby and toddler development. So first of all, I've worked 10 plus years in early intervention as a pediatric developmental therapist. I've helped babies and toddlers and even families navigate through different developmental concerns, diagnoses, different prognosis and stuff like that. I worked 5 years as a service coordinator, helping families understand referrals. So getting those referrals set up, the evaluations, all the services that needed set up, the different IFSP meetings I was scheduling and a part of, and then also working on that transition from early intervention to early childhood services in your home school district. So being a part of or being a service coordinator was very helpful for me as a developmental therapist because I was in meetings with all kinds of different therapists: developmental therapy hearing, developmental therapy vision, occupational therapy, physical therapist, developmental therapist, and speech therapist. And I was able to hear all of them reporting their evaluations, coming up with goals, coming up with strategies. So even though I've been a developmental therapist for over 10 years, I think being a service coordinator was very crucial for me because I got to see the back end of early intervention and how it works. And then even as a developmental therapist, I got to see other developmental therapists reporting on, like I said, their standardized test and seeing what goals and strategies they were coming up with. And I got so many ideas from so many different providers. And then I also have a deep expertise in child development, birth to 3, across 5 different domains. So there's 5 different domains. And as a developmental therapist, I look at all 5. So on my standardized test, when I come in to assess a child, I look at all 5 areas of development, not just one. So I have experience in all of those, and I'm able to answer your questions and educate you based on that. I also have experience in working alongside different multidisciplinary teams. Like I said, the different therapists, speech, feeding, occupational therapist. And I kind of already said, as a pediatric developmental therapist, I look at 5 different areas of development. And something that most people who have been around Milestone Mom a long time don't know is I'm actually a certified elementary education teacher with a focus on special education, even though I'm not teaching in the classroom right now because I'm doing developmental therapy work for early intervention. Okay, so this is our 6-day live series. Today, like I said, is should I call early intervention? Tomorrow, we're going to talk all about referrals. Then we're going to talk about intake, then the evaluation process and what happens if your child qualifies. And then we will actually talk about transition and what that process looks like into the early childhood program from early intervention. So again, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below and I will make sure I get to them. Okay, so who does early intervention serve? Well, it's a birth to 36-month program and your child will actually age out the day before their 3rd birthday. children with any kind of diagnosis is in early intervention, any developmental delays, any children that might be at risk for delayed milestones, and then children who are simply just needing an evaluation or support. Maybe a mom, is questioning something. It's okay to call early intervention so we can come out and we can do a evaluation for your little one. So, and we'll go ahead and talk about examples as we keep going. And then what services can you expect from early intervention? So I kind of already mentioned these, but developmental therapy, which is what I am. But then we also have specialized developmental therapists. We have developmental therapy hearing specialist and vision therapist. We also have speech therapist in early intervention. Some speech therapists are also feeding therapists. But we also have feeding therapists that are not speech therapists. So, they're separate. And then we have occupational therapy. They usually focus on fine motor and that sensory profile. So if we do have a little one that has, or we have concerns that they might have sensory processing disorder, then we would call an occupational therapist in. And then, of course, we have physical therapy. So that is a therapist that's working on gross motor. In early intervention, as therapists, we can also refer for an autism screening with a developmental pediatrician if we find that necessary. Or we can we can refer to for a medical diagnostic, which is where your little one would get more like genetic testing if that needs to be completed. So that's something that we can definitely do in early intervention. Sometimes when we are called to come in and do an evaluation, autism might already be on a parent's mind. Sometimes they don't voice it, but they have it in the back of their mind, and it's something that we bring up, especially if we see red flags, in the evaluation. We can always get that developmental pediatrician autism screening set up. And then before we move on, this is so important to me, and even in my 5-day free workshop, um, which is linked below, all my free resources and paid resources are going to be linked in the description below. I teach on letting parents know that they are first and foremost their child's expert. So as a mom or a caregiver of a baby or toddler, I want you to trust your instincts. You know your child better than anybody else does. And your concerns definitely deserve attention. And I also want to let you know that early support really, really matters. And it never hurts if your spidey sense is going off to call early intervention. The best case scenario is your child doesn't qualify for early intervention, but at least you have that peace of mind knowing that you got them evaluated. And just remember that even asking questions is never, ever overreacting. And one of the biggest mistakes that I do see is moms dismissing their gut feeling. I always say a mom's spidey sense is super, super strong. So just do not ignore it. Moms, if you notice that something feels off, if your child seems behind their peers, you got to love that comparison game. I've heard so many times, a mom say, my 2-year-old had a friend, a play date who's 2, and they're like talking in sentences, and my child's like saying 5 words. But she never would have known that until she got to experience her child with another peer. I call that the comparison game. And then milestones aren't coming the way they should be, and interactions just feel different. And then we also have well-meaning family members that usually have phrases like, they'll catch up, boys are slower than girls, every child is different. You may even have a pediatrician saying, let's wait it out and see. And that's why I'm here to let you know that you don't have to wait it out and see. And getting support early matters because the brain actually develops the fastest in the first 3 years of life. And this is golden right here. As a parent, you can refer to early intervention. You do not need to wait for a doctor's referral. Okay. And we'll talk more about the referral process tomorrow, but just remember that you do not need to wait for a pediatrician. Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and keep moving on. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section. and I will definitely get to them. Let's see here. Okay, so when should you call early intervention? So let's go ahead and break this down by domain. And I'm just going to give you a few pointers in each age range to let you know that you're not overreacting. Like some of these do actually warrant a call to early intervention. So, just really quick over here for speech and communication, limited babbling, few gestures, they're not quite pointing yet. They don't respond to their name, limited eye contact, few or no words by expected age ranges, difficulty understanding language. And I want you to remember words are important, but communication starts long before words. So, a child pointing, a child clapping, a child bringing you things. All of those are so important. So I went ahead and broke these down by age as well. So birth to 9 months. If they don't have, if they have little cooing, if you have a very quiet baby that just really isn't cooing or babbling, and sometimes that depends on personality, but I went ahead and put that in here too. Limited babbling, little back and forth vocal play. 9 to 15 months, no pointing yet, no waving, not showing objects, and not looking where you point. If you were to point to something, typically they would look by that age. If they're not turning to look to see where your finger is pointing, then that might warrant a call. And then toddlers, if they have very few words, if they're hard to understand, if they have a lot of frustration when communicating, and if they don't imitate words. So, usually between the ages of 9 to 15 months, your little one will actually start imitating. And we always say that imitation is a precursor of language development. So, just keep that in mind. Again, if you have any questions, put those in the comment section for me. And then let's go ahead and talk about motor. The motor section is divided into two different parts, gross motor and fine motor. So fine motor, think of your fingers and your wrists. So very floppy, or I'm sorry, very stiff body, which usually is hypertonia. Very floppy body is usually hypotonia. Difficulty lifting head, delayed rolling, trouble sitting independently. They may be delayed in crawling or in their mobility. Uses one side more than the other, toe walking, frequent falls or poor balance. Sometimes, obviously this could be a medical thing. A lot of times it's more of a sensory processing situation that we're looking at. Same with poor coordination, persistent fisting or tightening of hands and not loosening their grip. Movement looks unusual or asymmetrical. A lot of times when little ones do have this hypertonia, they actually favor one side of their body versus the other, which, kind of goes along with the movements that look unusual or asymmetrical. So broken down into different age ranges. So babies birth to 9 months, something you could look for. I kind of listed all of them here and then I put them by age. I thought that might be helpful for you. So that stiff or floppy body, difficulty lifting head during tummy time, those tight fists or not grabbing onto toys, and then a strong preference for one side or uneven movements. And then 9 to 15 months, difficulty sitting independently, limited crawling or unusual crawling pattern. And yes, babies do crawl in different ways. I actually have a YouTube video on that I will try to remember to link below on the different ways of crawling. But if you notice, like maybe your baby is weaker on one side, which is causing the unusual crawling pattern, that's definitely warrants a call, or at least to be aware of it and to monitor it as a parent. And then trouble pulling to stand, persistent standing on tiptoes, so that toe walking, and then toddlers, delayed walking or walking that looks unusual, frequent falling or poor balance, persistent toe walking, and then trouble climbing, running, or keeping up physically. I actually saw a kiddo one time that was on my caseload where his walking was a little bit off. It was kind of hard to describe. At first, we thought it was maybe a sensory processing thing because he was bumping into things. But once we got the PT in there, we realized that it warranted a for him to go see the doctor. One leg was actually longer than the other, which was causing him some difficulty in walking. So this, all of these are not like isolated, but if I were you as a parent, I would tell parents just to make sure you're documenting different things. Okay. And then, so social and play signs. So if they have a limited eye contact, they don't imitate words or even actions. They don't smile socially, not bringing toys to you to share. So a little one who wants to engage socially will actually bring you things. They have limited joint attention, repetitive play, prefers objects over people. There are some kiddos that we come in to see that do actually have autism. They will sit in our play space and they will play with the toys that we have, but very rarely, if ever, they'll look up to engage in eye contact or to show me what they're playing with. They're more just interested in the toy itself and not me or the therapist. It doesn't engage in pretend play, difficulty connecting socially, and limited back and forth interaction. So if you want, you can go ahead and read over here what I had put for like birth to 9 months. I do want to let you know that babies are wired for connection and social engagement actually starts early. So if you do notice limited eye contact in that age range, few social smiles, difficulty engaging socially, or little back and forth interactions, those are definitely some things to note. 9 to 15 months, no pointing to share interest. So first you can point and they'll look, and then eventually they will start pointing for you to look at what they want. I'm not showing toys or objects to you, limited imitation, like waving, clapping, or even gestures. There are some kiddos in this age range that do have limited vocabulary, but at least they're still at least taking their parent by the hand, bringing them to the kitchen, to the pantry to show them what they want to eat. They don't follow your point or gaze. And then toddlers, limited pretend play, repetitive play patterns, only a little interest in shared play, and difficulty connecting socially with others. So guys, if you could let me know how old your little one is, and if you have any concerns for them, if you're comfortable putting that in there, if they've been through early intervention, if you're thinking about starting the process, yeah, just let us know in the comments. And then quickly feeding. So if they have trouble latching, sometimes this could be due to a lip or tongue tie, and they have difficulty sucking on breast or bottle. They have frequent gagging or choking, trouble transitioning to different textures, very picky eating, limited accepted foods that they will take, difficulty chewing, oral motor weakness, strong sensory aversions, and meal times are stressful. And this kind of goes along with meal times are stressful, picky eating is common, okay, especially in toddlers, but extreme restriction deserves a closer look for sure. So in the birth to 9-month category, trouble latching or weak sucking pattern, coughing, choking, gagging during feedings, especially if it's bottle, this could be, or if they're drinking a bottle, it could be aspiration, maybe even silent aspiration could be part of that, which needs to be checked out by a medical doctor. Maybe they have long, exhausting feedings. It's taking them forever to feed, and you're not quite for sure why. Difficulty transitioning to spoon feedings. And then around 9 to 15 months, difficulty moving beyond purees. So they have a difficult time with purees, which can cause, gagging from different textures, which is the next one. Maybe at this point, they're refusing finger foods, or they have limited self-feeding attempts, being able to pick up a piece of food and put it in their own mouth. Toddlers, extremely limited acceptance to different foods, strong texture aversions, mealtime battles that are a regular thing, difficulty chewing age-appropriate foods. The strong texture aversions, I once saw a little one who had pretty significant sensory processing concerns. And so he was seeing by both an occupational therapist and a feeding therapist. And one of his aversions was slimy food. So you can imagine like cut up pears or, like the canned peaches. And I remember we were doing an evaluation. So it was myself, it was the occupational therapist, and the feeding therapist there. And we put up some cut up peaches on his tray. And sure enough, he did go to pick them up. But the second he felt the peaches in his hand, he had a gagging aversion to it. And it didn't even have to be up to his mouth. Just him touching that gave him that aversion. And he started gagging. So those textures, that tactile sensory aversion, and that oral sensory aversion can be very, very strong in little ones. And then, so let's go ahead and recap when to call early intervention. So, if you have concerns that last weeks or months, maybe you're just on the beginning part of it, and you're like, I wonder, like, if this is normal. I always tell parents, start writing it down, and we'll talk about it right down here. Let's see. So, I said, make sure you document what you are concerned about. Write out what you're seeing. And you can even record your little one to show a pediatrician or an early intervention specialist. So, like at mealtime, if they are gagging on a certain texture, record it and you can show them. You won't believe how helpful it is when we come into a family's home and they're trying to explain something. Um, it's better to see it on video and to see it in real time and see what's happening. So, if you have concerns lasting weeks or months, um, months is okay. I really wouldn't wait that long. I mean, early intervention is birth to 3, and we are here to help you. So even if you're on the fence of should I call, should I not call, call. Okay. And throughout this series, we're going to talk about payments and free assessments and all of that and what that looks like. But if you're on the fence, call. I always tell parents, like, you've done nothing wrong. If your child does not qualify, then they don't qualify and we go on our way. If they do qualify, then you have the help that you need. And then if your little one's missing any milestones, any loss of skills, feeding issues that we talked about, any movement concerns, um, communication concerns, or your mama gut, your spidey sense says that something's off. And then tomorrow we will actually talk about how to contact early intervention and make that referral and what that looks like. So I'm really excited about that. And I can't wait to see you here tomorrow live. Still can't believe this is happening, but I'm getting out of my own way because I'm ready to serve you. I've got so many things to teach you, and I cannot wait. Every Monday morning, I'm going to go live. I'm sorry, not every Monday morning, every Monday. It's our Milestone Monday live series at 12:30 Central Time. That way, hopefully, your little one will be taking a nap, and then you can meet me here for our live. So again, drop any questions that you have in the comment section. I will get to those. Whether you're watching the live or the pre-recording, I'm going to go ahead and check those. Also, if you have a topic that you are interested in learning more about, please drop that in there as well. And I'm always looking for new topics to teach on. So let me go ahead and get into a few questions here. Okay, so my baby is 6 months and still feels really stiff or floppy. Is this normal? So we kind of already talked about that muscle tone. And we talked about the hypertonia and the hypotonia. So some of this is fairly normal in early infancy, a lot of it depending on how they were in the womb. But what matters most is how it is impacting their movement. So I actually look at things like, can your little one lift their head while they're in tummy time? Or if they're laying on your chest, like some babies don't like tummy time, and we'll definitely be getting into some of those teaching moments. But even if they're laying like on your chest, are they able to lift their head? Do they move both sides of their body evenly? Are they able to, when they do lift their head, do you feel like they're favoring one side or the other? And I always tell parents, like, make sure you're putting your baby on different sides. So, um, If they're under a play mat, I totally get it because things are, above them that they can look at. But especially if they like a toy that's maybe over here that they keep, trying to look at, make sure that you're flipping them around so they're not always looking to the left or looking to the right. That way they can stretch both sides of their neck muscles and they don't favor one side. So I guess what I would say also to this is if they're consistently very stiff or floppy, and it's affecting how they move or interact with their environment, that is definitely something to bring up to your pediatrician. Because, like I said before, that's more of a possibly a torticollis type of thing, which would need to be looked at by a medical doctor. Typically, when that happens, though, they are referred to early intervention so they can get some physical therapy assistance with that. And I always tell parents, trust your gut. I'm going to say this through the whole thing. Parents are often the first ones that feel like something's off. So if that is the case, bring it up to your pediatrician and you can get more direction there, or feel free to call the early intervention program. I always have a link in the description below to the early intervention in your state. So feel free to look at that if that's something you want to do. Okay, and then moving on, we have my toddler is walking, but they fall a lot and seem clumsy. Should I be worried? So, especially in toddlers, some falling is completely normal. Actually, if you have a 5 or 6-year-old, falling is still completely normal. I don't know if you noticed, but they trip over their own 2 feet. So very, very normal. And this is a early learning skill of learning to balance. But over time, walking should actually become more stable and coordinated, and your toddler should become more confident, and falling should happen less frequently. So if they are struggling to navigate simple surfaces or showing very limited improvement in that coordination, we might want to take a closer look at that. Sometimes, like I mentioned before, it could be like a sensory processing thing. We wouldn't know until we got in there to take a look. But I think some clumsiness is normal. This is something where I would probably, unless it's a medical thing, document and just kind of monitor it. If you do have a pediatrician's appointment coming up, maybe bring it up to them. We have a little one that I saw who did great on flat surfaces, but when it came to curbs or even like one step, it wasn't even a series of steps. Like instead of stepping off of it, they would actually sit down on their bottom and go down the curb. And I'm talking like a curb on the street. So it's very hard for them to transition from those different uneven surfaces. And that little one was actually seeing a physical therapist. Okay, so last question, and then I will let you guys go, and I will see you tomorrow for the next live on the referral process. So my child isn't pointing or showing me things. Should this be a big deal? Or is this a big deal? Is that really a big deal? So pointing might seem very, very small. Remember I said communication actually starts before first words even start. Well, pointing is actually one of them. It's actually a very important communication milestone because it's not just about gestures. It's about that shared attention with you, which falls into that personal social realm. When they do that kind of stuff, when they are trying to point or to show you something, they're showing you like, look at that. Do you see what I see? This is what I want, right? So it's like bringing you into their shared interest. So it doesn't always mean something is wrong, but it does mean that we want to support that early skill as best as we can. And this is exactly what early intervention can help with through like play-based strategies. So, I would say, that pointing is a very important precursor of that shared joint attention. So I would definitely document it and just kind of see, you can always take your child by the hand and like show them to point to it. We call that hand over hand assistance. You can show them yourself, and they can start practicing that way. So let me see if we have any other questions. No, I think that's it, you guys. We did it. We got through our first live. I'm so very excited. I'm so glad that you were here today. And I cannot wait to make this let me go ahead and switch, a normal part of weekly milestone Monday live series. So that's all I have for you today. I will see you tomorrow for the referral process. And I hope you guys have a really good day. All right. Bye bye.